people think that we are crazy, but I believe that you believe that it is real. In 1972, my parents purchased a house and we moved in. I was 5 at that time. During the 5 years that we lived there, so many strange and terrible things happened. Right after moving in, we had a sense that we were not alone. Late at night, my sister and I would see a man standing over us while in our beds. I got accustomed to sleeping under the bed for years. We would lock our door, and he would unlock it. We would put things away, and he would take them back out. He was always taking things and placing them in the exact same spot a week later. We asked neighbors about the house shortly after moving in, when we arrived home from shopping, and it sounded like there was a party going on inside. When the door was opened, there was nothing, just silence. That was when we started asking questions about the property. One neighbor, who lived next door for over 50 years, told us a heart-wrenching story. It seems that a family of 4 had lived in the house in the late 1960s to the early 1970s. Man, wife, and 2 sons. In 1969, one of the boys was crossing the street and was hit and killed by a speeding car. The other child was also killed in the same spot, same time, same way, 1 year to the date. The mother was so upset that a few days later, she hung herself in the living room. The father came home to find his wife, and he shot himself in the kitchen. This was 2 years before we purchased the house, and had been on the market since the tragedies. I cannot say as to whether the spirit was content with us or not. For instance, at the age of 8 and my sister 11, she got sick and was admitted into the hospital as dead on arrival. Thank God the doctors did not give up. They saved her life and gave her back to us. She was diagnosed with encephalitis, a deadly disease during that time, and still is. She was in the bathroom when I found her that night, and in the mirror appeared a shadow of a man's head. We have since destroyed that mirror, but the shadow was never there before her sickness. Second instance, we moved and rented the house out to my aunt. One evening my uncle had went to retrieve some items he had in the garage. 2 of the items were antique shotguns. We have never been able to find shells for these 2 guns, and they're in shadow boxes now. As my uncle picked up one of the guns, the other slipped and went off. He was shot in the neck and shoulder, and almost died from the injuries. Thing is, there was no proof either gun had been fired. Police could not find any powder residue anywhere, but they concluded that the shot came from that caliber of gun. Third instance, I moved back into the house in 1986, shortly after the birth of my son. After being there a week, it was extremely hot that summer. I had a feeling something was wrong with the baby. I went into the room and noticed that it was blue and ice cold. As I rushed him to the hospital, he was coming around. At the hospital, they said nothing was wrong with him, and he sent me home. I moved that night. I only go into the house if a renter moves out. Nobody ever lives there long. I still get locked into the rooms. I feel his presence all around me, and the hair stands up on my arms. We have never been able to get a minister to go in the house. We always get told that evil lurks there. There are many other instances, but these are the ones that really bothered me the most. I'm 60 years old at the present time, but when I was in my early 20s, I married a very loving, handsome man, and we moved into our first home, which was a big red brick house in a small town. The house was separated into 2 halves, an upstairs and a downstairs. We lived in the bottom half. Soon after moving into the house, we gave birth to a beautiful daughter. Our life was fulfilled. Back then, I was still very much in love with my husband, and even today I am. And he was ever so proud of his little Joy Lynn, our daughter. Our life couldn't be better at this point. Until one day, during a hot summer, the family above us had to move due to work, and I was asked if I could clean and paint the upper half and tried to find a new family to move in. I cleaned a little one day and then decided to start again early morning when the sun wasn't beating through the windows. And so I did. I started at 5 a.m. and decided to take a break and do one of my own chores that needed tending to. I left the door open that led to the upper half of the home and began to wash some clothes. When I went out in the yard to hang them, I thought nothing about my very curious 5-year-old daughter being alone in the house. I was only right outside the door. I went back in the house to make lunch for her before I began to clean again and called for her and got no answer. I began searching for her and she was nowhere to be found. After searching the streets, I called my husband home and then contacted the authorities. They found her daughter. She had explored through the door that was to the upper half of the house and climbed up into the attic, and when they had found her, she was dead. I was in shock. I was only outside for a short time, and she had no marks on her body to show cause, and the medical people couldn't even explain what the cause of death was. This was the hardest thing I even had to endure. One night, while lying in bed, trying to reenact the day out in my head and figure out what could have happened, my husband made a strange noise and yelled, "Did you see her?" I sat up and asked what he was seeing, and he swore my daughter had entered the room. I assured him no one was there, and that his mind was playing tricks on him because he missed her so much. That was one of my many long tearful nights, and it happened several times a week, until exactly 8 months to the day that our daughter died. When I was leaving to go to the mill, I found my husband's lifeless body lying on the basement stairs that led to the outside, and in his hands, tightly clutched, was the doll my daughter lost the day before she died. The doctors say it was a heart attack, but at the young age of 30, I think he had too much strain on his heart over the loss of his daughter. I began to blame the house. It had took my only happiness from me. I moved out shortly after, but rumors have it that the families that lived there soon after swore to see a man and a little girl walking the house in search of each other. This is my true but sad story, and someday we will be together again. As for the house, it still stands, and every so often I drive to see if I can get a glimpse of my family it took from me. Sunday, September 16th, 2001. Very early in the morning, around 6:45 a.m., I witnessed what I would speculate is my first ghost experience. Before I go and tell you what I saw, or what I think I saw, I think I should mention all the details from the night before. I live in Pennsylvania, and my fiancé lives on the border of New York and New Jersey. We were driving home from his house that night at about 12 midnight, which was about a 2-hour drive from a funeral we had attended earlier that day for his grandmother. As we were driving home, we got to telling each other about different ghost stories and urban legends. At first I was scared, getting creeped out by each story. However, after about an hour and a half of stories, I started to relax and enjoyed listening to them. When we got to my house, we decided to look for ghost stories on the internet. We got into reading in-depth stories and looking at pictures. At about 4 a.m., I put him to bed in my guest room. I still live at home with my parents, and they're very uptight about him and I sleeping together. The guest room is filled with porcelain dolls, many put in the closet due to being too freaky looking for him at night. He went to bed with the light on, again being afraid of the dolls, in the empty room. I went back to my room and stayed up for another 2.5 hours, being afraid myself. I wasn't afraid of dolls, but instead my room. My house is about 12 years old. I've been living in this house ever since I was 6. We moved in right after my 6th birthday in October. The area is new, and we were the first people to ever live there. The area before this was a dense forest, and it wasn't torn down until a year before the house was built. The area wasn't a graveyard, nor was it ever. When I was younger, I used to think the area was, so I went and did research directly where my house is located. As a child, I was sent to school in St. Anne's, a Catholic school in the area. I went to church either Saturday night or Sunday morning for years and years of my life. When I got to about 5th grade, I started to not believe in God. Around the same time, my parents were asking priests to come over and bless our house. I asked my parents nicely to keep the priests out of my room, not wanting it to be blessed. At first, my parents thought I was into the devil, but I explained that me not believing in God meant no devil either. When I reached 9th grade, I dropped Catholic school, and my parents no longer started to attend church. I know I've been going off subject, but I guess I should give you the background information before the details. I didn't want to go to bed at all, but I knew I should, so I waited until the sun came up and crawled into bed. My room is the hottest room in the entire house. It is so small. By the time I had gone to bed, I'd gotten so cold that I had to sleep fully dressed with a sweatshirt on. I never even did this in the winter. When I was under the covers, I looked up at the ceiling. Maybe it was my imagination, due to all the fright I've been going through, but it looked like something was above me. I started to doze off for a second and looked straight up at the ceiling. What I noticed was absolutely terrifying. I noticed a spider, only had a human face. It was translucent, and it looked at me with piercing eyes. The eyes were even red. I closed my eyes yet again, and when I reopened them, everything seemed fine, and there was nothing on the ceiling. I've never in my life been this scared, and I've never in my life imagined things, even when I was scared. I closed my eyes and refused to open them. I fell asleep, from what I recall, a few minutes after. Later the next day, at around 8 p.m., Derek and I had been talking about what happened the previous night. We were both hungry, so I decided to go downstairs and go find something for him and I to snack on. When I came back up, we started eating, and he casually drops a line. He told me that while that was happening, last night he saw a person in the distance while the door was open in the hallway. He said he knew it was a ghost because it was transparent, but not transparent enough to notice the spiders crawling all over this person. He noticed it for about 10 seconds, and then it faded away. He was absolutely terrified, even though he seemed really nonchalant, telling me the story. I could see it in his eyes. A split second later, he felt a cold draft enter the room. Although there was no windows open at the moment, before this, I never really believed in ghosts the way I do now. However, maybe we were both scared and imagined this. And one day though, everything that was told in this email is true and exact. Nothing was exaggerated. I would really like some help and hope maybe someone could answer my questions. Please tell me if you think we're both seeing things, or if maybe our willingness to believe has brought out a spirit. Whatever the case, it was horrifying, and I do not want to experience the spider ever again. I'm an agnostic, or truth seeker. My wife is not, but both of us are open-minded people. We also believe that spirits exist, as well as ghosts, and my wife considers it creepy, while I simply remain fascinated with them. We moved into an apartment just after we were married, in 1999. I believe that there are ghosts and residual energies in various places in our apartment. The place is the standard apartment layout, and every once in a while, night or day, it doesn't matter what time, She and I, or both, would hear the sounds of footsteps on carpet going down a short hallway. These were not boots in the hardwood footsteps, but more like bare feet on plush carpet. We felt that the ghost was female and very sweet. She would just walk down the hallway towards the bedrooms. If I were in one of the bedrooms, I would always have a small feeling of happiness go through me after I heard her coming. The way you would feel if someone smiled at you. Occasionally, we would feel her watching us from the front room or back bedroom. Evidently, the hallway was where her domain was. There were never cold spots, but my wife would occasionally feel the lady next to her when she walked from the bedrooms to the front room. The lady made my wife feel rather creeped out. However, she startled me once when she came running into the bedroom, eyes wide, and told me that the lady moaned in her ear, as if trying to say something to her. So for the sake of my wife, we stood in the hallway and asked the lady nicely, but firmly, that she could remain, but to not make her presence known to us. We also informed her about the light and how she could enter into it. Since we had no more occurrences with her in the small bedroom, there's either residual energy or a passive ghost. I feel watched when I'm in there, and it's usually 10 to 15 degrees cooler, even with the afternoon sun spilling in. I don't think my wife feels it, and no one else does either, but I felt it so strongly, so I placed a micro cassette recorder in there with a sensitive mic and recorded for the duration of the 30-minute tape. The only odd things I've heard on the tape were an occasional whistle that changes in octave. The second only lasts for a half a second, but it's an audible, breathy whistle that goes up an octave, like first part of a wolf whistle. That was interesting, and I'd dismiss it if it weren't for some of our possessions being misplaced that suddenly appear in odd places. Our truck keys suddenly disappeared this morning without a trace anywhere. The truck was searched over twice, and the apartment was searched. So I made duplicates at Home Depot and gave them to my wife, who used them to drive to the doctor's appointment. When the appointment was over, we walked back out to the truck and opened the door with a duplicate key. There on the driver's side seat was the original set of keys that were missing. She would have felt them under her bum if they'd been there before. She called me at work in hysteria, telling me all about it. I don't mind ghosts being around. I consider them friends, or at least I try to make friends with them. They are, in fact, just spirits without bodies. Some are angry, some are nice, and even some are jokers. When you come across one, you should respect him or her just like you would a complete stranger. Make friends with it, or ask it to leave if you wish. But don't disrespect ghosts because of childhood, Halloween stories. They are intelligent humans who are a bit confused about where they are. If you happen to have one around you, simply ask it to walk into the light where friends and loved ones await them. This experience is not that exciting to hear about. I do not wish to embellish it with creepy anecdotes or a mysterious plot, but nevertheless, this is how it went. I attended Hagengrove Military Academy in Chatham, Virginia, a town that in itself is stuck in time. It is the home of racists, bigots, and sadists who have inherited land from their ancestors. It is not a place in which I would suggest visiting. Having said that, I used to make a trip with some of my classmates in a beer store, 57's, which was an hour-long walk through pasture and woods from the campus. We never left with the intent to be caught by school officials, one of which, Captain Stout, a double Medal of Honor veteran, who is as sneaky and stealthy as anyone on the planet. The penalty of being caught was very high. We did not mention this experience to anyone who was not present. It surely would have spread. We were on our way back from 57's at about 1 o'clock in the morning, a little buzz from cheap beer with the intent to distribute alcohol to other students, when the three of us, mainly my roommate and best friend, stopped dead in our tracks for no reason. I'll remember the next sequence of events until the day I die. We heard the unmistakable war cries of rebel soldiers on the charge. It is a sound somewhat akin to imprisoned tribesmen intent on killing you. From atop a hill, directly in front of us, through the trees, came 30 to 40 purely solid figures charging, apparently unconcerned with us. We hit the forest floor and did not make a sound as we witnessed a battle. First 10 or 12 volleys of gunfire, and finally hand-to-hand combat, and then retreat. It is pointless for me to explain every troop movement I witnessed. Just use your imagination, and you should understand. The whole incident lasted no longer than 2 to 3 minutes, but the cries of those men will haunt me forever. Look guys, you're already here, I understand that. Just click the little subscribe button if you haven't already, write a little comment saying, "Oh, I love you, Phantom," or maybe you just want to say you want to troll me. Well, you don't have to say that you're going to troll me. If you're going to announce that you're going to troll me, just do it anyway. There's no point in that. Just do it. I mean, we're all getting old here. We're not going to be young forever. So why don't you just troll me? Don't announce it. Don't make it a big spectacle. Just do it. Just do it. Like frickin' Adam Levine. That doesn't make any sense. Well, regardless if you're going to pull Adam Levine and try to troll me, just know that you can comment, like, share, and subscribe. Ladies and gentlemen, in the comments section below, be a lady and a gentleman, and just let me know your thoughts of these stories. I welcome all insights, even insights, like I said, of trolls. So Adam Levine, I know you want to troll me. I don't know why I'm so obsessed with Adam Levine lately, but you can troll me. You can see me in the comment section below. I'll be flapping my underwear in your face, and I'll have a good time. Anyway, before I get weirder and weirder, I'm going to sign off, guys. But I want to thank everybody for participating in the comment section below and just supporting me all the time. I really appreciate it, guys. And one last thing I want to say, Sean O'Connor, I know you have your story that's waiting in the wings, and I'm going to get to it. It'll be in the next video. Promise you that. It will be in the next video. But anyway, guys, I'm going to stop annoying you right now. I'll let you know in the comment section how I'm feeling, and have a good night. Love you guys, and good morning also. Wow, I'm weird. Shut up, Phantom.